Hi guys, Jimmy here from JB Motion. Today we're going to be making this. It's a spaceship traveling through a portal, which is in the Dubai frame. Now, this Dubai frame is actually not CGI. It actually exists in Dubai, even though it looks like it's CGI. It's like, why in the world would you put a giant rectangle there? But I'm not saying anything bad about the Dubai frame. It looks really cool. If you guys want to download the video from the description below and the model, you're welcome to do so. And just keep in mind, you're going to need RG trap code to follow along with this tutorial. So let's get started on this. Here we go. Okay, so this is the footage. This is the Dubai frame. We're going to be using this, and I've already converted this to an image sequence. You guys can download said sequence from the description below. So let's jump now into cinema and let's get this footage tracked. So I'm going to jump into my track layout. Let's create a motion tracker object by double clicking. We can select the footage by doing the same. I have it here, and let's bring that in. So I'm going to crank up the resampling, and I'm going to just play this so that it loads itself into the cache. Just pause the video now and we'll pop back in once that's done. Cool, so that's all loaded into cache now. So now we can go into our objects tab here. Or no, we're fine in our track view. We go into the footage tab. Everything's okay there. So let's start setting up our auto tracks. So we can create about 700 of these, and let's just click on create auto tracks. We need to be on frame 0 actually first of all. Let's do that again, and let's track forward. I'm just going to pause the video for each time this starts processing, just so you guys don't have to wait around. Okay, so that's that. We're losing all of our tracks around the midpoint here, so we're going to create more auto tracks as well. It is tracking like vehicles here, so and we can just kind of lasso select the track points that are tracking cars and stuff like that. There's another one here, because we don't want to be tracking vehicles because they're moving. It's going to confuse our tracker. Because they're so small, I don't think it would make much of a difference, but just to be on the safe side, that's fine. We don't need to worry about every single one of them. Let's grab that, delete that. Okay, that should be fine. So next we could get rid of that reflection as well. See, this one we have like, it's tracking the reflection as well, so we could get rid of that. And there's another like dodgy looking one as well. Okay. So now let's go to the end of our footage, and we're going to go into the Objects tab this time, click on Motion Tracker, and we're going to go and create another bunch of auto tracks. This time we're tracking backwards, as we're on the last frame. We're going to track backwards. We'll pop back in once that's done. Okay, so let's see what that's looking like. Okay, pretty good. Like, around the center point, we don't have many track points left at this stage, so we're going to do another track here. So let's create a bunch of auto tracks around the midpoint of this, around here. And this time we're going to auto track backwards and forwards because we're in the middle. So let's do that now. Okay, so let's have a look. So yeah, it's all looking pretty good. Looks like it's tracking a little car down there. We'll get rid of that. And yeah, everything else is looking pretty good. Okay, so now we can do the full solve. So let's go into the 3D solve tab here, and let's just go back to frame 0, and we can run the 3D solver. So that's going to take a bit of time. So as usual, I'll just pause the video and we'll pop back in once it's done. Okay, so that's finished. So let's have a look. So everything seems good. All these little green circles don't seem to be jittery or anything like that. Not sure what this one is doing. see if I can just grab that and find it. Where are you? There you are. Oh. There you are. Just get rid of that fella. He just seemed to be dangling in space, so... I was probably following one of those traffic lights or those street lamps or something. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So what we can do now is we can tell Cinema where we want World Center to be. So let's select the motion tracker, and I'm going to go and go up to Tracker, Constraints, and Create Position Constraint. So I'm going to put my World Center just, I suppose, right on the frame somewhere. Makes sense. So around maybe here. So that's going to be World Center. So if I create a cube, it's going to be huge because we haven't set the scale of everything yet. But if I just scale this down to like 10, now you can see that that's at World Center. Okay, so let's fix the whole scale of this. So we need to tell Cinema like how big this frame is, I suppose. That's one way we could do it. We could tell it how tall the Dubai frame is. So what we can do is click on Motion Tracker, go to Tracker, Constraints, and Create Vector Constraint. We can select a point at the bottom of this Dubai frame and then one at the top. And we can tell it that that's traveling along the y-axis. We know the length. Well, I don't know the length yet, so let me find the length out. Dubai frame height. So it's telling me on Google that it's 150 meters. So let's just type that into Cinema so we can tell it how tall this is. 15,000 centimeters. Cool. So now if we create a little man, he's going to be as small as you'd expect him to be. You can't really see him now. I'll turn off the work plane. There he is there. He's tiny, but you can see him maybe. Maybe if I just click at him. Yeah, so he's really small, but you get the idea. Now we've told Cinema 4D the scale of this frame, so it knows how small objects should be when we place them in our scene, and it knows where to place them at the selected world center. Cool. So before we move on, let's just do a file save project as, and I'm going to save that in here. Call this Stargate. So now we can go about creating the objects that we're going to be using inside of After Effects to add our trapcode form effects to. So the first thing is going to be the kind of gate that we have in the middle of the Dubai frame. So that's going to be a cube. Let's create one now, and we can just start scaling this up. Scale up. Make sure model mode is selected, and we can just start scaling that up. And I'm using my little yellow circles here so I can kind of, change the size along the X, the Y, and the Z as well. So let's rotate this, just trying to line it up as best we can with the Dubai frame. So let's just have a look at that. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. Might need to rotate it a little bit, ever so slightly. And let's have a look at that. Okay, so that's looking decent enough. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as perfect as you can get it, I suppose, without stressing yourselves out. And we need to increase the width of this as well, because it's not meeting both the sides yet. So I'm using my space bar here to switch between currently selected tool and the previously selected tool. And something like that should be fine. And maybe reduce the size along the x-axis there. Okay, so that's looking pretty good as far as positioning and rotation. So we still need to make it bigger. We need to scale it up along the y-axis so it takes up the whole frame. Something like that. Don't worry too much if it goes beyond the edges of the frame, because we're going to be masking that out in After Effects anyway. So something like this looks pretty good. Okay, cool. And we need to make that a little bit wider as well. Okay, so that is good enough. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect, because remember, this is going to be turned into a mesh, and you know, you're not going to see these hard edges anyway. So that is good to go. So this is going to be the Stargate, the actual main gate of the whole composition. So we're going to have to export that out as an OBJ. We'll do that now in a minute. But next we have the, what do we have? We have that kind of donut, or the torus that kind of wraps around the entire frame. So for that, we'll create a torus object. And again, we need to scale this right up. And if I jump into my top view, we can go into our object tab of our torus object, just kind of bring down the ring, bring down the pipe radius. Let's have a look at that. Maybe even more. And let's just kind of position this. We're going to be positioning this anyway, repositioning this in After Effects anyway, but just to give ourselves an idea of what this is looking like. And just move that there. So something like that. Again, we can, once we export this as an OBJ, bring it into After Effects and add the trapcode form effects to it, we can reposition, rotate, and rescale this anyway. So that's our torus. Cool. I might just set the rotation, zero out the rotation for now, because we're going to be able to, again, do that in After Effects. And what else do we need? So we need the actual spaceship as well. So let's just do a file save, and I'm going to file open the spaceship. So you guys can download this model from the description below as well. I have this spaceship that I found on Andrew Kramer's blog. So if you guys just Google Andrew Kramer, you'll be able to find this. And I just kind of added some Redshift materials to it. That's not going to load for me because I have After Effects open, but don't worry about that for now. So I'm just going to grab this and make sure I'm in model mode. I'm going to copy this into my scene. And let's see where it is first of all. Go into my top view. Let's bring it out there. Let's move it up. And it's quite small, so let's scale it up to the size we'd like it to be. And let's change our render settings to Redshift as well, because we're going to be rendering this out in Redshift, and then we'll be able to see the materials of this. So I want to zoom in to where it is, and if I deactivate my camera, I'm kind of lost, right? So all I have to do is select the object, bring my cursor into the viewport area and hit S on my keyboard, and then that'll snap the view to the object that's selected. So I'm going to hit NA to go to ground shading. So I'm turning off the lines essentially. And we're having a look at this. Okay. So we want to rotate this just so it's kind of pointing in the right direction. Let's bring it back to the cube to give us a better idea of the direction that it needs to go in. Like that. Okay. Yep, so that looks fine. So just a bit more on this model. What I have done is I've attached 4 spheres to it, made them all children so they follow along. So you can see that the 4 spheres here are all, these are what I'm going to be using to create the glow effect from the kind of, as the spaceship's taken off. These are going to start glowing. It's going to look like, you know, jet fire or whatever. If I go into my materials, let's see. So I don't know why they're all black. I'll probably have to relink these or something like that, or maybe just recreate them. I might just recreate them actually in the tutorial, but don't worry about that for now. We'll do that at a later stage. So we can actually just start animating this now as well. Let's turn off the torus and the Stargate objects. Go back into our camera. And yeah, we can start animating this. Now, if I pull this back, let's select this first. We want this to kind of, as it does in the preview video, kind of flies in very slowly. The gate opens and it just kind of pauses there for a second before it darts off. So let's set that animation up now. So let's grab the X-Fighter object, go into our coordinates tab, and let's set, what are we set? Yeah, we're going to set keyframes on the X and the Z properties. And we're going to go forward to about here, we'll say. And this is going to come out. Am I pushing that out? No, I'm not. Where am I? I am pushing that out, yeah. Okay, so that's going to come out to about here. And it's going to stop. So we're going to add another couple of keyframes on the X and Y coordinates. It's going to stop for a little while. It's just going to be hovering there to about, let's say here. Maybe even here, I'd say. And then it's just going to dart off the screen. So let's add another keyframe, telling Cinema that it's going to start moving here again. Another couple of keyframes on the X and Z coordinates, and then it's going to dart off, and it's not going to take very long because it's a fast spaceship. And then it's going to, I'm just going to grab this, what is it, the Z-axis handle, and just dart that out of the shot. And then we're going to add coordinates, keyframes on the XZ again. So let's have a look at that. So it slowly comes in and it kind of eases in and eases out with regards to the keyframe interpolation. And then it's going to pause there for a little while. And also what we wanted to do at this pause is we want the lights or the jet fuel, which is currently black, we want that to light up, so it's prepping the engines. So it's going to start brightening up to about here, and it's going to be fully bright by the time it jets off. So let's just do that now. We can create the material. I'm going to delete these materials because they have to be relinked or something like that. And now we have our model. Now I have a bunch of selections already set up. So I have a selection for the window. I have a selection tag for the body. I have one for the little whatever they are. I don't watch Star Wars, so guns maybe. And I have a selection made for the nose, which I'm not going to be using. I just did the whole thing in like some metal material that I found in the content browser. And I have one selection for these. So you guys can use all these selection tags if you want, if you've downloaded the model. But I'm just going to be using this one and this one. And, of course, this one. So let's find the materials. Hopefully I can find the same ones that I use. I'll just do a save project. Go to the content browser, and we're going to search for metal. And we go to materials, and we're looking for a Redshift metal. So we'll just go for this one. So let's double click on that. I'm just going to let that download. So I'll pause the video while that's downloading. Oh, it downloaded. No, I need to pause the video. So we have that now. And if we apply that to, let's first of all select the correct tag. Now we can click and drag that, and now our ship is all shiny and metal. And the glass, I have one for the glass as well. So this glass is the ship. I have a selection tag already set up for that. Glass, we'll type that in. So we have glass clear. I think I went for the glass safety on that, so I'll just download that. And I'll apply that to this glass. So now we have our glass. And we need to create an incandescent material for the fire, for the jet fire and all that good stuff. So let's do that now. And let's set the color of this to be black for the time being, because we don't want it to have any color before it starts heating up. And intensity multiplier, we can just set that to 0. Actually, let's just see what it's going to be looking like. So we'll set it to the color we want it to be and bring up the intensity to like 28 or something like that. Or the intensity up to 28. Why aren't you working? Okay. And if I apply this to the, where is it? The guns. So I'll just apply that now to the guns. And to all of my spheres as well. So let's grab all of our spheres and add the incandescent to each one of them. A quick way of just doing that actually is just selecting all of them. Let me just delete these off. We can select all our spheres, and I think we right click and we select materials, add to, oh, I don't know how to do this actually. Oh, okay. Okay, I don't know how to do that, so I'm going to have to do it the slow way. There's a way you can just quickly just add the material to all of them, but I don't know how to do that at the moment. Now, let's see if we can just render this, actually, because I don't think I'm going to be able to render anything yet, because After Effects, I have After Effects open. So I'm going to have to pause the video, close down After Effects, close down everything, reopen it again, and then I'll be able to render this. So I'll just pause the video while I do all that, guys. Okay, so yeah, I did all that, and this is what it's looking like at the moment. So, you know, it doesn't look like much. We don't have any lighting set up, so we're not actually seeing it as it's going to look. But this is the way our incandescent material is going to be looking. So maybe if we just crank this, I think that's actually set high enough. Make this like, I don't know, a bit more red. Something like that. So that's fine. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to tell this incandescent material to be at its brightest at the point at which the spaceship is just about to dart off, which is here. So you can see the little keyframe here. It's just about to dart off. So we're going to set a keyframe on the color and the intensity multiplier. Then we're going to go back to the frame at which the spaceship is just about getting ready to dart off. So it has a big long pause here. It just settles here. And this is where we're going to tell it to be black and have an intensity multiplier of 0. Keyframe, keyframe. So now if I hit play, you'll see that this is just going to start lighting up as the spaceship's getting ready to jet off. So that's fine. Cool, so back into standard. I'm going to turn on my solved camera here, and I think that's all looking pretty good. We need to get some lighting into our scene, because right now, you know, if you have a look at what this is looking like, let's go into fit to window. So right now we can't actually see the background. It'd be nice to be able to. It's not necessary, but it'd be nice to be able to see our video in our Redshift render view. So to do that, we need to create a dome light, and we need to grab the texture that we're going to be using for this first of all. This is going to be giving us lighting for our scene. So for that, I'm just going to grab like one of these frames, maybe this one. I'm going to copy that into my top folder here and just select that. So that's going to give us our lighting. And for the background, we're going to have a backplate. And then we can load in the image sequence into this backplate. Let's do that now. Let's load in this movie sequence that we have. Just say no to that. Unravel this, go to animation, go to, because right now if I play, you'll see that our image sequence is not actually playing. So we go to the mode here, set that to simple, and we are going to detect frames. The frame rate is correct, that's fine. So now if we play, we're going to be able to get some playback in our Redshift render view as well. Cool, so let's see if we go to original size. You can see that our ship is actually looking quite decent now, as to before where it had no lighting, it just kind of looked like nothing. So now we have lighting from our image sequence. It's looking better. It's looking better. So better is good. So that's fine. So we have our spaceship set up, we have our Taurus, and we have our Stargate. So I think that's pretty much it. So what we can do now is we can just start exporting these two objects, the Taurus and the Stargate. We need to export these as OBJs so that we can use them in After Effects. So let's just do a save project. I'm going to go to get my Taurus first of all. And I'm going to bring this into a new Cinema 4D project, a new scene. Control C on that, Control N, and then Control V. So we can't see where it is. Let's select it, bring our cursor into the viewport, hit S. Now we can see it. Let's turn on our lines. So we just go NB on your keyboard so we can see our lines. So I'm going to be creating spheres using trapcode form. I'm going to be creating spheres along this torus, and they're going to be generated on each and every vertex or vertice or point on the torus. So the more of these we have, the more spheres we're going to be able to create. So if you don't want a lot, bring that right down, and you'd have to bring down this as well if you don't want a lot. But I want, I want a nice amount, something like pipe segments. I'm going to go for 19, and then for the ring segments, 201. So I'm going to get a good, decent amount of spheres in trapcode. So now what we can do is we can go File, Export, and we can export this as an OBJ. Let's create a new folder, and we'll go OBJ, and we'll call this Donut. Cool. So now we grab our next, this object, which is the Stargate. Control C, Control N. Let's paste that in. Let's just zoom out on this. And again, I'm going to turn on my lines, NB to turn on your lines. So we're going to need a bunch of segments here. We don't need any on the X, but we're going to need quite a few on the Y and on the Z. Something like that. And now we can export this as an OBJ. So File, Export, and export this as an OBJ. And we call this Stargate Cube, Stargate Cube. Oh, and save that. Okay, so now we have all of our OBJs exported and ready to bring into After Effects to apply our trap code form effects to. We can set up our Stargate scene for render. So let's just jump back into the Stargate scene and we'll turn off the torus and the Stargate itself, and we'll just have a look at the spaceship here, because I just want to fix something with regards to how it animates out of the shot. So if I open up my dope sheet here, you can see that it's going to come to a pause right about here. This is the keyframe where it just comes to a pause. It hovers there for a while. All that's fine. And this is where the incandescent material starts brightening up. So what I want to fix is how it exits the shot. So as it is now, if I just select these keyframes and hit tab to open up these curves, you can see that it's going to gradually speed up, which is fine, and then it gradually reduces speed. We don't want it to do that. Let's just play it and see what it looks like. Gradually speeds up, and then it kind of slowly comes to a stop. We don't want that to happen. We just want it to continue on, not losing any momentum as it goes out of the shot. So to fix that, all we have to do is grab these two keyframes here. Let's zoom in on those. And we just need to straighten those curves. Like that. So now we still have our gradual building up of speed, but there's going to be no easing out. So let's close down the dope sheet and just have a look at that. Zoom. So it just shoots off the shot, out of shot there. We could even speed that up a little bit. So if I just grab these and bring this forward a bit, so it's actually going to go out of shot even faster. Yeah, something like that. That might be a bit too fast. Let's just bring this up a little bit, something in the middle. Okay, cool. So that's fine. So that's done. So let's have a look at what this is looking like once we try and render this out. So we'll jump into our Redshift render view. I'm going to go to fit window on this, and let's just see what this is looking like. So I just had to do a quick restart of Cinema for that rendering error I was getting there. So let's go to original size so we can zoom in on this. Now I want to add some bloom and I want to add some streaks to my jet fires here and my guns as well. So to do that, I'm going to go into this little cogwheel here and I'm going to turn on bloom. Let's unravel this and crank up the intensity up as far as it's going to go. And then we'll turn on streak as well. And let's crank up the intensity of that as well. Okay. So we can mess around with the bloom threshold as well to give us a bit more of a noticeable bloom. And I think that that's looking pretty good. Might go a little bit more on that. Yeah, something like that is looking nice, I think. So that's fine. Just click on this cog wheel again to close that down. Let's go to fit to window. And if we just have a quick look at this, what it's looking like with our backplate turned on. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So we'll turn that back off because we don't want to see the backplate when we're rendering. And if I just switch to alpha, you can see, okay, so straight away we can see something we need to turn off. Our figure, we don't want to see him, so turn him off. So it's a good idea to switch to alpha just to see what you're actually getting in the alpha channel. That helped me to see he was there. So we can go back to RGB, and that's looking pretty good. So we'll hop into our render settings, and we're just going to set this up for render. Now, we're not going to be rendering this out right now because we're going to be jumping straight into After Effects. And if we're rendering stuff out of Cinema 4D at the same time, it's just going to slow us down in After Effects. Regardless, I am going to be putting the full rendered sequence for the X-Fighter in the description below, so you guys can download it to follow along with the tutorial. So if we go to output, just click, that's 1920 by 1080, that's fine. The frame rate is good, and we're going to go to all frames. We want to render out all frames. We're going to save this as a PNG sequence. And I'm going to save it out to a folder I have created called Sequences, X-Fighter, and I'm going to call that X-Fighter. Save that. Turn on the alpha channel. We have our Redshift post effects. That's our streak and our bloom that we've set up. And we definitely want to be turning on motion blur. So in the Redshift options in the advanced tab, let's select motion blur and enable that. Okay, cool. So that is it, guys, for the render settings. So again, I'm not going to be rendering this out now because we're jumping into After Effects. We don't want to slow down our machines. But for any of you who want to download the sequence, you can do that from the description below. Okay, so now we're ready to jump into After Effects and start putting everything together. So let's just bring in our movie sequence first of all. So this is the movie sequence. This is just our video. Let's bring that in and let's drag this down to the little composition icon. So this is our video, and now we can just start creating this Stargate. So let's create a new solid, layer, new solid, and we'll call this Stargate, and we're going to be using the form effect for this. Click OK on that. Now we're going to go to Effect, RG Trap Code, and Form. Cool, so that's our form now, and now we need to grab the OBJ that we have exported and apply it to this form effect. So we'll just unravel base form here and go to the base form, and let's select the 3D model option. And now we can choose the model that we want to apply to this. We can add a new model. And here are the OBJs. So we're going to be using the Stargate cube that we had exported earlier. So now if we just scroll down, you can see that we have the Stargate cube, and let's just grab that. Cool. Okay, so now at the moment, it's just hovering in the middle of our shot. So we need to get the camera from the Cinema 4D file that we've been working on. So let's double click here on this project panel here so we can import in the Cinema 4D file. So it's the Stargate one, that's the one that we've been working on, this one here. So let's just double click and import that in to our After Effects project. Now we can just simply drag this down to our composition. Just give that a second to load. And now that that's loaded in, we want to use the Cineware by Maxon effect here, or plugin or whatever it is, to extract the camera, and it's going to also extract the dome light. So we don't need the dome light. We can just get rid of that. And we don't really need the Cinema 4D file either anymore, so we can get rid of that. All we really need is the camera. So now we have a camera in here, and you can see that the form effect has disappeared. So the camera is looking in this direction, but the form effect is elsewhere. So we need to reposition this so that it's going to be in the view of our Cinema 4D camera. So what we can do is just jump into Cinema 4D, we can grab the Stargate object. We don't need to turn on its visibility. All we're interested in are the coordinates. So let's just start copying and pasting the coordinates from this into After Effects. Okay, so we still can't see it. So we need to make it bigger. And it's still not visible. Now the reason for this is because we have set up our Cinema 4D scene and the scale is actually accurate. It's to scale. So our scale is massive. Remember, we used the vector constraint when we were tracking the camera to find out the height, to tell cinema the height of the Dubai frame. So our scale is huge. So it's not actually rendering. So we need to go down to the visibility options here and just crank this up to like maybe 100,000 or something like that. Now you can see that the form is now visible. It's no longer being clipped. And that visibility setting just needs to be cranked up. Size-wise, it could be bigger. Now, position-wise, the X and Z coordinates are spot on. The Y coordinates, I don't know why, but they're not. So we need to just fix that. So if we just start bringing this down, I'm just clicking and dragging. So that has to go down quite a good bit. So we'll try like, what is it at now? 4,800. So we'll try like 22,000. So that needs to go down even more. We'll try like 1,000. We'll try 10. We'll try 0 actually. So it's going to have to be a minus value. So maybe we'll try minus 50,000 or minus 5,000, I should say. Let's start scaling it up. And we still haven't nailed the Y coordinates yet. We'll try minus 8,000. Too much. So we'll go minus 7,000. Minus 6,500. Okay, so that seems about right. Now for the rotation, I'm going to set this to minus 45 degrees. We'll go minus 46. So that looks about right rotation-wise. And we need to scale this up even more. So I'm just increasing the base form size. Maybe that's a little bit too much. Or no, that looks pretty good actually. Let's have a look if we just scrub forward here. Yeah, that looks fine. Because remember, we're going to be able to cut off any of the edges that are bleeding out there. We can just cut those off using masks. So that is actually fine. So that's good to go for the the positioning of this thing and the rotation. Now, if we unravel the 3D model settings, we want to make sure that the particles form is set to edges, which it is at default. Particle density, we can maybe bring that up to like 200. And that's fine for everything in that setting. Now we can just unravel the particle settings. And we might want to increase the size of this to like 4, possibly. Size random. Yeah, we'll do a bit of size random. Maybe not that much. Opacity random, we'll do a bit of that as well. And maybe go up in size up to like 6. For color, we're going to go with that teal that I had at the very start of this in the clip. It was kind of a tealish color. Something like that. And I'm going to increase the size even more. I'm going to go up to 9 on the size. And I might go back up even to my base form and 3D model settings and increase the particle density to like 260. Cool. And that is everything for the particle settings. So next is going to be the fractal field settings. So that's what's going to give us our kind of, imagine if you created a displace or deform in Cinema 4D and you applied a noise to it, an animated noise. This is kind of what the fractal field settings is going to do for us for the form effect in Trapcode. So do we want the fractal field to affect the size? We do a bit. And we want to affect the opacity as well. Maybe a good bit more. So you can see that we're getting a noise now. And the noise, the scale of the noise isn't what I want it to be. So to fix that, I'm going to go down to the F scale. And I think I need to bring this down to something like 0.4. So now you can see that the scale is looking at, so imagine that the F scale in Trapcode form, it's similar to the overall scale when you're creating a noise inside of After Effects, when you're creating a noise for a displace or deformer or anything like that. That's what we're working with here. So I might want to reduce the effects opacity down a bit, because you can see that at the parts where it is affecting, it's completely removing the visibility. So we'll bring that down a good bit to like 15. Maybe not that much actually. We'll bring it up to like 29. Something like that maybe. Maybe 25. Okay, cool. And might even go back maybe to 0.5 for the F scale. Yeah, something like that. So now if we try and play this, now it might run slowly for you depending on your graphics card and what you're working with. So if I try and play this now, I've actually opened up, if I go to Window and Preview, you might already have it here, but I have it open, and I've actually set the playback to skip 5 frames. If I just tell it to skip 0 frames, I'm going to get a very slow playback. So to just speed things up when we're working on this, I've set it to skip 5 frames. So I'm going to get much quicker playback. So you can see that my fractal field, it's not really animating as such. It just seems static. So to fix that, I'm going to increase the, where is it? The flow evolution. So I'm going to go up to like 500 on this. And now if we play this, so we're still not really getting any movement, any noticeable movement anyway. So we'll go like up to a crazy value. Yeah, so now you can see we're actually getting some noticeable animation in the fractal field, which is spot on. That's what we want. And what I want to do also with this fractal field, with these fractal field settings, is increase the displace property. That's going to actually, as it says on the tin, it's going to displace this. So let's just crank this up to a few hundred. Maybe even we'll go up as far as like 450. And now you can see that's giving us some nice displacement. I think it's affecting the, I think the fractal field is affecting the opacity a bit too much. So I might just bring this down to like 12. Yeah, something like 12. I'm a bit happier with something like 12 on that. Okay. So you can see like playback is really struggling from my computer anyway. So again, if you guys have a better computer with a better graphics card, you can just play this back in without having to skip frames. But if you are struggling, just skip a few frames, maybe even turn down the resolution. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to bring in the rendered sequence of our X-Fighter. So I had this rendered already. You guys, as I said, you can download it from the description below. So I'm going to bring in that sequence that we've rendered out. I have it in here. Let's just bring that in. Now if we drag this down to our composition, you'll see there he is. Now we're going to have to create a mask for him so that he's not visible, so that he won't be visible. We want him to be behind this part of the Dubai frame, so we'll have to create a few masks towards the end of this. What we want to do with him is just when he gets to about here, we want our Stargate to open up, to create this kind of wormhole that's going to allow him to pass through. So we can just start setting that up now. So the wormhole is going to start opening up when he is just about here, we'll say. So if we go back to our Stargate form effect layer, I should say, and all we have to do is find the spherical field properties. So let's unravel sphere 1. We can actually have 2 of these. So we're just going to work with 1. And we want to visualize it so we can actually see where it is, I suppose. So we can't see it at the moment, and we need to fix that using the position properties. So we want it to be in the same position as the form is in. So we can just go to our base form and we can just start copying and pasting. It's a pity there's not an option to just copy all of these. But if I just start copying and pasting these XY coordinates into the sphere position, then our sphere will be in the same position as the Stargate. Okay, and we're going to need to scale this up as well. So if we increase the radius of this, so there, now we can see it. It looks just like a field, a spherical field inside a Cinema 4D. So that's too big. So let's bring it down. And now if we increase the strength of this, you're going to be able to see what it's going to do to our Stargate. So you can see it's creating that kind of wormhole that we wanted to get. Let's bring it up further along the Y. So I'm just decreasing the Y value here to bring it up closer to our X-Fighter ship. And we can have a look at what this is looking like if we go over here. We can increase the radius of this even more. Something like that. Okay, so now we have a nice opening for our X-Fighter to travel through. So we want this to start opening. As we said, we want it to start opening just before the X-Fighter is about to show itself from behind here. So, you know, we want it to open when it needs to. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a... Will we do it on strength? If we create a keyframe on strength, we'll set the strength to 0. We'll add a keyframe. And then just before the X-Fighter is about to touch the Stargate, which is probably around here, you could say. or even further back just a little bit. We're going to increase the strength of this to 100. And if I just select this layer and hit U on my keyboard, that'll show us all of our keyframes. Now you can see what we're doing. So if I just go back to this keyframe and hit play, that opens up. And that's going to stay open until our X-Fighter has traveled through the wormhole. Now that you could say that it happens a bit too fast, because how many seconds is that? So that's going to open in just a second. So maybe we could start that opening right at the beginning. So then it kind of opens up a bit slower so that it doesn't look too rushed. Yeah, so that'll work out better for us, I'd say. And we want to create kind of an ease in, ease out of this. So if I select both these keyframes, hit F9 on your keyboard, now it'll gradually build up speed and gradually lose speed. It'll add a bit more interest to the animation of that. What we can do as well is, if we want it to be really fast at the start and very slow towards the end, we can open up the, the graph editor, and we can fit all graphs to view. Let's grab the last keyframe and just slow this right down. So now it's going to be very fast at the start, and it's going to be nice and slow towards the end of this animation. Let's close down the graph editor now and just have a look at that. So it's going to be quite fast at the very beginning, but it's quickly going to lose speed towards the end. So it might look a bit more interesting. But that's completely up to you guys. You can do with the keyframe interpolation as you wish. So then what's going to happen is our X-Fighter is going to travel through the wormhole. And when he's around here, he's going to pause until about that point there. So if we could start closing the wormhole, say around this point, just when he's well clear of it, we'll say. So what we can do is we can just unravel this so that we're going to be able to, where are we? Actually, we can do it down here. So make sure that you have this layer selected, hit U on your keyboard if you can't already see the keyframes. Let's add a keyframe with the strength at 100, and then we're going to go to about here, and we're just going to close that wormhole. So let's set the strength now to 0. And let's open up select both of those keyframes, open up the graph editor, and let's make it nice and slow at the start. So it slowly starts to close and then gets faster towards the end. So it's going to slowly go down in radius, and it's going to pick up speed towards the end and just kind of zoom, closed. Cool. So that's that. What we can do as well to make this look a little bit nicer is we can go into our effects and presets, grab a glow, and let's just double click to apply that to our Stargate form layer. Or you can just click and drag. So now we have some nice glow on that. You can mess around with the glow properties. I might bring down the glow intensity to like 0.5. And I might mess around with this glow threshold as well. So I'm going to go for something like 1.2 on the glow threshold. This again is personal preference, and we can change the blending mode on this to screen. So now it's going to kind of blend in with the sky a bit better and blend in with the floor a bit better. So it gives it a bit more variation as well as to the look of this. Just gives it a bit of a more natural blended look. And also we want to have particles now. Now that we have this form set up, we also want to have kind of these little particles that are going to be generated on each of the vertices in our cube, in the OBJ Stargate cube that we exported from Cinema 4D. We can do this really easily, but before I do that, I just want to do a file save as, and just save this to save this before we go any further in case something happens. We'll save this as Stargate VFX. Cool. Okay, so to create these little particles, really easy. All we have to do is just with this layer selected, hit Control D on your keyboard to duplicate it. Let's turn this one off for now, and then we can hit Enter on this one to rename it to particles. Now we could be using particular to do this, but there's really no need. All we have to do is with this form layer duplicated, we're going to, in our base form, in our 3D model settings, we're going to change the particles form to vertices. And now all of these little form particles, or form, whatever you want to call them, are going to be generated on each of the vertices of our cube OBJ. So we can't see it at the moment. So we need to increase the size of the particles. So if we just go down here, let's bring up the particle size right up to something like that. And we can increase the size random up to 100 for this. And the opacity random, we can bring that up as well to something like that. And even the sphere feather, we can crank that right up as well. So maybe actually I might bring that back down to 50. I preferred the way it looked at 50. Cool. So now if we turn back on our Stargate form, and if we have a look at this, so now our guy is coming up. You can see we have a bunch of little particles, and because we've already created these keyframes, when the wormhole opens, so too does a wormhole open for the new Stargate form particles that we duplicated from this. So that just adds a bit more detail, I suppose. We can even change the colors of these just to kind of differentiate it a bit more. Go for like a whiter color. Or we could even bring up the color random up to 100%, and it's going to give you like a bunch of different colors if you want to. And then you can actually set the where is it? Color mode. If you unravel this, you can actually randomize the gradient that it's using to generate random colors. But I'm just going to turn off color random for myself, and I'm going to leave it something like that, maybe even like whiter. Maybe try dark blue. Let's see what that looks like. No, I'm going to undo that and go back to the color I had it at earlier. It's just a a lighter version of the teal I have for the Stargate. Cool. So that's looking pretty good. So the next step now is to bring in the torus and apply again some more form effects to that. Okay, so let's go and create a new solid, and we'll call this donut. And we can go and apply our form effects to this. Form, here we go. And now we're going to go into our base form. Set this to 3D model again, and we're going to choose the model, and it's going to be the donut that we have had previously exported from Cinema 4D. So we have it here. So just load that in, give that a second, Here it is. So double click on that. And we're not going to see it for the same reasons that we didn't see our Stargate. So first thing is, let's increase the visibility of this. So far vanish, we can just crank that up to like 100,000. And let's go up here to the top again. Base form size, we're going to go for something like 30,000. And for the, so we have it here. There it is there. It's popped up. Visibility, or for the position of this, we can go back to cinema and we can grab the X and Z coordinates for this. So the X and that move, I don't know. And then the Z, let's grab that as well. And the Y is not going to be accurate, but we can get it anyway as a starting point and just increase it then as needs be. Okay, yeah, so it's completely off. So for the Y, we're going to go for like minus 6,000. Might go minus 7 actually. Minus 7,000. And I want to add a bit of Z rotation as well. So I'm going to go about minus 12 on this. Cool. So let's go down now to particle. Sphere feather is fine. Size of sphere, let's go up to like 180. Let's go to, yeah, that's cool. 180 will do. Let's increase the size of this a little bit more as well. We'll go up to like 33,000. And now let's go down. All the way down to, let's see, what are we doing? So the size of this, we've set that size random, we can increase this to 100%. And opacity, we can leave it at 100. And for opacity random, we'll go to like 75%. And now if we go down to fractal field, so again, this is like what's going to give us this added bit of interest, like what we did with the Stargate. So down in fractal field, open up those settings. We want to affect the size by about 15. And then the opacity, we're going to affect that by about 55. We're going to add a bit of displacement, 300 or so displacement, maybe even 315. And we are going to go down to the F scale. And we might just leave that at 10 for now. We'll see what it looks like once we start playing this. The color of this, where's color? So the color inside of particle, we're going to set the color as random from gradient. And then the color over, if we just unravel that, we can grab a preset. And let's grab this kind of bluish, whitish one. And I'm going to put this in the center. And I'm going to make this less dark, less saturated. Something like that. Something like that, we'll say. Okay. Let's see, if we go to not show forms, trying to reduce the density a bit of this. Where is that? 3D model settings. And Okay, so particles form along the edges. We want them to form along the vertices of our donut. That's why we had so many of them. They were forming along the edges of the torus object. So, excuse me. So now we have them forming along the vertices, which looks a bit better. Let's see what else. Particle density is already at 100%. We could crank it up. It doesn't seem to be doing anything though. Turn it down. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be doing anything beyond 100%, so we can just leave it at that. Yeah, okay, so that's looking pretty good. So if we just play this a little bit, scrub along. Okay, so that's fine. That's looking nice. So what we can do is add a bit of depth of field now, so that we're going to focus in on the Stargate, but have everything close to the camera and far away from the camera, kind of out of focus. So we want to go to the solved camera and unravel this, unravel the camera options, and we're going to turn on depth of field. Okay, so now you can see we're getting a bit of blur, but we need to set the focus distance. So keeping in mind that the size of this donut is like pretty big. So if we say like, if we set the focus distance on the camera to something close to this, like maybe just 32,000 or something like that. Here, 32,000. So now you can see that it's putting the Stargate more in focus, and then everything else away that's further away from it is more out of focus. We can, let's see, we can crank up the aperture as well to something pretty high, like 7,000 as well. Go crazy with it. And for the blending mode of our donut, we can just try out a few different ones. So I think what did we do with the Stargate? We use screen. So we did the same with the Stargate particles. So we'll just go screen, see what it looks like. Yeah. Okay, I think screen looks good. You can try a few others if you want, but I think screen would be the one to go with. It looks pretty good. And if we just kind of play this back now. So again, I have my preview set up to skip 5 frames. So this plays back a little bit faster because it is quite slow to play back on my machine. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. So we have to do a bit of masking now. So what I want to do is cut away the donut whenever it's behind the Dubai frame. I want to cut that away. And I also want to cut away the ship, the X-Fighter, when it is behind, also, again, when it's behind this part of the Dubai frame. Oh, as well, I want to cut away the edges of this, the Stargate itself. So quite a bit of masking to be done here. So we'll start this off with the Stargate, I suppose. So if we just bring scrub to the very end, and let's select the Stargate form and grab our pen tool. And let's just zoom in. Using Z on my keyboard to go to the magnifying glass, and then I'm just zooming in. I can hit G on my keyboard to switch back to the pen tool. And I want to just cut this edge away. And I'm going to follow along the edge of the Dubai frame. That's fine. I'm using middle mouse click now to switch to my hand tool. And down there. So we do have quite a bit of masking to do. And usually whenever I do masking in tutorials, somebody always kind of lets me know that I'm doing it the slow way. But I actually kind of like masking. I mean, there probably are other ways to set this up with regards to maybe you could use puzzle mats in Cinema 4D to do this stuff. But for this, it's not too time consuming because it's just like a rectangle. We're just doing straight lines. Okay, so we have that mask set up, but it's not actually cutting away anything. So if I just solo this layer, let's see if we invert it. So why is it not cutting that away? Okay, so bizarrely enough, masks aren't working for me on the form effects. I don't know why. Like, I could have swore I've masked form effects before. But anyway, they're not working. You can see, like, if I try to mask this video, it works. So I don't know why it's suddenly not letting me mask form effects. Maybe I dreamt that I masked them before. I don't know. I'm pretty certain that I didn't, though. Anyway, the solution for this would be to create some track mats instead. Pretty much the same thing. So I'm going to deselect all the layers here in my sequence, grab my pen tool again. I'm going to zoom in the same way that I did, using Z on my keyboard to grab my zoom tool, and then G to go back to my pen tool. And I have the fill color set to green. Doesn't have to be. I just keep my track mats at green, just so I know that they're track mats. So let's do what we were doing now. We just draw in a nice track mat that we're going to be able to use to cut away the edges of the Stargate. Okay. So this will be our Stargate mat. And I'm going to set this layer color to green. Again, unnecessary. I just so I can keep all this stuff organized. And let's bring this down to above the Stargate particles and the Stargate form. Select both of them. Go to track mat and select the... Where is it? Select these and select the Stargate mat. So that cuts away the edges for us. So that's great. So we are going to have to animate this as well. So let's select the Stargate mat and go to Contents, go to Path, and let's create a keyframe right here. Let's just scrub along. Keep scrubbing to about here, we'll say, and we can just start making adjustments to this. So I'm going to grab these two, pull them, just start pulling these around so that the corners stay in the corners of the do by frame. And let's do that again. So this is just going to take a little bit of time, guys. So instead of having you watch me do all of this, I'm going to just speed up the video here, and it's just a case of just doing the same thing over and over again. You can zoom in a bit just to make sure you're getting those corners right. And yeah, I'll fast forward here, and we'll see you at the end of this. Okay guys, so just the last one here. Just lining this up. So I'm kind of like not being exact with this, because what I'm going to do is if I just play this now and we'll have a look at this looks like, if we can actually play it back. There we go. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's looking pretty good for a rushed job. What you could do is go in between each of these keyframes and just kind of like fine tune if necessary. It looks like it's doing a pretty good job of it anyway. Okay, so that's fine. We don't need to watch all of that. That's doing its job. And next we're going to do the same, but for our starship. And then finally we're going to be doing it for our donut. So let's do it for our X-Fighter, I should call it. So right about here, we're going to create... So I probably can mask this time because it's not a form layer. So if I just zoom in here, and we can just hit G, let's grab a mask and just draw one out for this guy. Come on, do it a straight line. So let's see, is he not disappearing? Okay, there we go. Just click on inverted and then the X-Fighter disappears. Let's open up the mask path if it's not already open. So to do that, just double click on that. There it is there. Let's create a keyframe. Let's just scrub along. And we want to hit V on your keyboard, so you're going to be able to lasso select these two anchor points, bring these back again to the edge, and that will just animate everything in between. So you can see he just emerges then from the edge. So that's that done for the Stargate. And we'll make sure that that mask doesn't touch him for the rest of the shot, because we don't want him to disappear again. Yeah, so he doesn't touch that mask again. So that's fine. We don't need to get rid of that mask. I mean, if you wanted to, just to be on the safe side, we could just grab it and just get rid of it off the edge of the shot. Okay, so that's the Stargate, and then the last mask we have to do is one for the donut. So let's grab the donut. Well, we don't need to grab it. I wonder, is mask going to work for me now? Just randomly, just check it. Probably won't. Nope. So we're going to be using a track mat again for this. So we can just draw one in this time. What we can do, yeah, we just draw one in. So we just start here and draw one all the way down to the end there. Okay, so if we open up the rectangle path, let's see, so stroke. Okay, I think we actually do need to draw it in, just so we'll be able to get access to each for the anchor points. So we'll just do that now. I'm just going to zoom in. Grab my pen tool, G on your keyboard, and let's just draw this guy in. Okay, cool. And we'll set the layer color here to be green. And we'll call this donut mat. Okay, and let's grab the donut. We can just bring this down to keep everything organized. We don't need to do that, just for organization. And we'll go and set the donut track mat to be the donut mat. Cool. And this time we need to invert that. So it's actually going to be set to, let's see, how do we invert that now? Click to invert mat. There we go. Okay, so that's inverted. Looks like we need it slightly above because we're cutting away the front of the donut there. So let's go to our donut mat. Go to the contents, shape 1, path 1, path. Now hit V in your keyboard to get your selection tool, and we'll just grab these 2 points, bring those up. And this one can go up a bit further so that we're not cutting away the front part of that donut. Hopefully that won't give us any trouble now in a minute. Should be fine. Okay, so we'll start this. We'll just line up everything here. and I want to, so we are getting a very hard edge there. What we could do is go to our donut actually and just maybe increase the rotation of this like to -17. Or not on that axis actually. Is it on the x-axis? We'll try +12. Yeah, okay, so that will make it easier for us to mask this out. Maybe a little bit less. We'll go +8. Maybe less again. We'll try it like that. Okay, yeah, that should be fine. So we'll go back to our mat and we'll set up the initial keyframes for the path here now again. So just zooming in a bit on this. That's there, that's fine. And this one, just line it up a bit closer to the edge. Okay, so that's our initial keyframe for this pass. We'll scrub a bit and we'll just line these up again. So these are both one on top of the other, so we can select both of those at the same time. Just making sure we're cutting off any visibility of the donut from behind the Dubai frame. And then we can scrub along again and do the same. So I'm just going to fast forward the video here again, guys, and so you don't have to watch me doing this. Okay, so let's have a look at this. We might have to do a bit of tweaking, or not. We could add a glow as well to the donut, because I believe we added one to our Stargate. Let's see, where's our Stargate? So I think we have a glow added onto it. Yeah, so if I just Control-C and Control-V this onto my donut, just to see what it looks like. Yeah, it looks kind of nice. We can mess around with it a bit, maybe play with the settings on this to kind of differentiate it a bit from the Stargate. Something like that. Looks fine. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's the end of this tutorial. What you could do is to, even if you wanted to further brighten up the X fighter, you could apply a lumetri effect to it. So it will kind of like, you know, be a bit more exposed. So if I just scrub a little bit further along to where it darts off, and let's go to our, let's just wrap everything up there. So if we go to our X fighter, let's go to effects, grab a lumetri, and let's apply that to the X fighter by double clicking on it. Once it's selected, just double click on it and we can increase the exposure of this up to something like 1. So you can see with and without, kind of brightens it up. We can increase the highlights as well a bit. And maybe increase the contrast. Maybe not that much. So now that's before, after. So you can see that kind of makes it pop a little bit more. We could do the same for our Dubai frame sequence. If you wanted, just add a lumetri effect onto that. You can mess around with the exposure settings and the contrast and highlights in that. But yeah, I'm not going to do that now. So I'm just going to wrap up the tutorial there, guys, because it's been dragging on now for a bit. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got a lot out of it and learned a lot. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and please do smash that like button. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video.